move on to some information about the webinar. So the webinar will last about 60 minutes as usual. That's 45 minutes of my presentation, which is this PowerPoint and my voice over it. And then hopefully we've got a full 15 minutes at the end for any questions you might have. But those questions at the end are questions for me. But throughout this webinar, you'll know that the Avengers team are in the Q&A box answering your questions. So that's why when I ask you a question, I'd like your answer in the chat box, because that's what I have open, that's what I'm looking at, that's how I'm talking to you and seeing your response. So put your answers in the chat box or on the polls as they come up, and leave the question and answer box either for the last 15 minutes while you're paying attention throughout, and then the last 15 minutes you can ask us any other questions, or during the webinar, and the team are there to answer those questions. Now so far we're approaching about 1,000 participants today. So I hope you can imagine that with that number of people here, it's simply not possible for us to answer everyone's questions. So my advice is, if you're going into the Q&A box and you see it's quite busy, look for your question, see if someone else has already asked it, and like it so that we know which ones to prioritise. And if you do have any questions about your test booking, please look for your local test centre details on takeielts.org or ielts.org and contact them. We're not able to answer those questions. As always, please be careful about your personal details. So don't share any of that. No phone numbers or emails, please. And please be courteous to everyone involved. You always are, but we just need to say this every time because we don't want this to be the first time that there's a problem and we might have to exclude someone. Okay, so before we move on, I do have one more question for you, and it's about previous webinars. So, have you attended one of the webinars before, a British Council IELTS webinar? If you could put your answers on the poll, if you can see it, or in the chat box, and then we would also like to know which of the ones you have attended. Maybe you've been to all of them, maybe this is your first one. So answers on the poll or in the chat box. Have you been to one of these webinars before, and which ones? Okay, I'll give you another 10 seconds. If you've been to all of them, I know you're keeping yourself busy. Okay. Right. Thank you very much. Lots of answers coming in. Thank you for letting us know. And I know we ask you this every time, but it's good to know who's here and get to know you a bit better. So let's look at the results of that. Again, the majority of you have attended webinars before. That's great. So you know how this all works. But if this is your first webinar, welcome. It's lovely to have you join us today. And I can see that there are a variety of different webinars that you've attended. Today, we're looking closely at the Reading Self-Study programme. So we'll start with an introduction to self-study in general, the self-study programme for reading and what that looks like day by day. I'll give you some top tips for improving your reading. We'll summarise what we go through, and then, as I've mentioned, at the end, we'll have some time for question and answer, and that's what we use the Q&A box for. But when I ask you questions, it's answers in the polls or in the chat box. And here's another example of one of those. So if we look at the next question, please. This question is about the first webinar that we had last week for the self-study skills. Last week, that was with Sarah. It was about writing. And I just want to know, did you attend that previous webinar? So if you can't see the poll question, answer in the chat box. Did you attend the previous self-study skills webinar on writing last Thursday? I'll give you 5 seconds. Most of you have already answered. Okay. And let's look at those results, shall we? Okay, so a lot of you did attend, but the majority you didn't attend. You didn't attend last week's. That's no problem at all. Just to let you know that this information coming up now, this information now may be familiar to you if you did attend the webinar last week. Because the first thing you need to think about before you start a self-study program like this is how to start studying on your own at home in general. So we've got some key steps for you to consider before you start your studying. And I wonder if you can identify what these are. Let's look at the first one. I wonder if you can complete this phrase if I give you some clues. So what are we setting here? It's something that you need to be clear about and be clear about what you want to achieve. You need to be realistic in this step. It's based on the time you have available. An example of this is 5 new words a day would be one example. As you go through, week after week, you could tick off each one of these that you have managed to achieve at the end of the week. I can see some answers coming in now in the chat box. Great. I think a few of you have got this already. Well done. A couple more clues. Identify reasons why you couldn't achieve some of these. And then your final one is to review and set new ones for the next week. So what am I talking about here? What first step is this when it comes to self-study? Some of you are saying time, not for this one, not setting time, but setting targets. That's it, right? Okay, so these need to be personal to you. And if you follow the advice that we've put together here, setting targets that will work best for you and your own goals. So let's move on. What about the next step in considering your self-study? Look at the advice here and try to identify what this one is about. So you want to make it your own. Keep all of your books, all of your stationery and your notes here. What do you think the P stands for in the chat box, please? This should be separate from your social or living space. I can see the answers coming in thick and fast. Now, last clue, it's somewhere where you can minimize interruptions. I think most of you have got this. You didn't need that last clue, but yes, we're talking here about the place. Now, the place that you have to study, if you're lucky and you've got your own room, then that's fantastic. But for most of us, it's just a dedicated space or a corner of your home. If you are lucky enough to be now out of lockdown, maybe you're even now able to go into a library and that's the place where you study. But the important thing is that you follow this advice and make it work for you. What's the next area? So answers in the chat box. What step in the self-study is this? That you need to think about what suits you. For example, the morning. It fits in with those you live with. It fits in with your other commitments. Yeah, I think you've all got this once. A few more clues though. You need to set realistic targets. Don't overload to avoid exhaustion. A little and regularly is probably better. Well done, everybody. You got this straight away. The T was the big clue, wasn't it? We're talking about time. Choose a time of day when you are at your best and you can really concentrate. Some of us, like me, I'm a morning person. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'm rubbish in the evening. So there's no right time, just a time that's right for you. And of course, you do need to think about how this fits in around the needs of the people that you're living with. And the next step, what do you think this concerns? What's this next step in considering your own self-study? This is about working along, maybe you want to work alongside a friend who's also studying for IELTS. Or what you could do here is share your progress on social media, allow people to like it and comment and push you on. Talk to friends and family to seek this out. Or, and my key advice here is to join the Take IELTS official Facebook group to be amongst others who are in the same position as you. So what do you think the S stands for here? That's right. We're talking about support, and support is really important. Even if you don't know anyone else doing the exam, tell the people around you how you are doing and how you are feeling. They don't need to know anything about IELTS to be there for you and to encourage you. So let's look at the final step that we suggest you think about, you consider in your self-study. Always focus on what you have achieved. Remember to congratulate yourself for success and maybe even reward yourself for a job well done, for 2 hours of study. An example of my favourite type of reward is to watch the telly. So watch an episode of your favourite TV show and to take regular short breaks from study. What do you think this is? Okay, a few of you answered before I even got to the second tip here. That's right, be kind to yourself. It's important that you're kind to yourself. If the current situation has taught us all anything, it's the importance of health and well-being. So make sure that you are looking after yourself. Sometimes in life you need to be your own cheerleader. So let's start looking at what you can get out of the Reading Self-Study programme. The main aims of the programme are that you understand the format of the reading test and what you have to do. You develop your own reading skills by incorporating reading into your everyday routine. You will hopefully increase your reading speed by working towards a timed practice test on the last day, at the end of the week. You will expand your vocabulary range, and that will help you to deal with the topics that might come up in the reading test. And finally, become familiar with and practice a variety of question types from the reading test. So when we're talking about the programme, we're talking today using terms like week and days, but I want you to remember that point we made earlier about time. You might want to take longer than a day on any one of these. And the design of the programme is that you can take as long as you need to do that. I'll be talking about it in days, but you adapt this, make it work for you. So let's go through it and what each day involves. Day one is all about getting to know the test and identifying your current IELTS level. Feeling comfortable about what to expect from the test will hopefully give you a bit more confidence. And here's part of one of the websites you can visit that we will send these links to you in the PDF to give you the information. But we are going to do some reading practice now. We're going to do a little bit, sorry about that. We're going to do a little bit of scan reading. So what we mean by scan reading is I'll give you a question. You should be able to see the questions now. Don't worry, I will read them out. And I want you to look very quickly at the information on the slide to answer the questions. So the questions are about the slide. How many reading texts are there? How long is the test? What question types are there? And how do we write our answers? I'll give you 40 seconds to read the slide, scan read, and answer in the chat box if you can't use the poll. Okay, another 10 seconds. So this is quick reading scanning. You're looking for specific information on the slide and answers either in the chat box or on the poll. I'll give you another 5 seconds to get your answers in, please. Okay. Thank you very much. And let's look at the answers, shall we? Okay, well done. Now, some of these answers, I'll be honest with you, some of these answers I can see are incorrect because you were answering too quickly. Don't rush into answers. Make sure you read the questions carefully. But I have to say, you've done very, very well. So the first question, how many reading texts are there? That's right. Majority of you got that right, 72%. Well done. There are 3 reading texts. How long is the test? 60 minutes. 81% of you got that right straight away. Well done. What question types? Now, here's an example of what I was saying, that you've maybe answered this question just a little bit too quickly. Because, yes, we had a list of question types, but the answer was actually the last one, all of the above. However, I'm really happy to see not too many of you fell into that trap, with 82% getting that right and 68% getting it right in the last question. Answers must be written accurately on the answer sheet. And that's really, really important. So well done, everybody. Okay, so that's day 1. But let's move on now to talk about day 2. From day 2, you will begin your daily reading practice. Through this, you will, over the course of the week, not only improve your reading skills, but you'll also use the texts as a source of new vocabulary. And you can see that there in the second point, that you'll be expanding your vocabulary range. Day 2, you'll also have links to these different types of questions for the reading exam. So you'll have 2 completion question types, that's table and flowchart completion, as well as short answer questions. Now, I know for a lot of you, you maybe have never heard these terms before. That's why you're here. That's why you're doing the reading program, that you will get to know what all of this means. But I want to show you an example of the website that you'll be using to source your own reading material every day. So what we do in that PDF that we send to you is we'll send you the links for everything. So don't worry that you can't access the link at the top of my screen, because this is being sent to you. So this links us to this website, One Stop English. And this is a great website with enough reading material to last forever. And your job is to choose for yourself, from the variety of topics here, something that interests you. The articles on this site also have vocabulary and grammar development questions that you can complete if you want. But the important thing here is that you're developing that really good habit of choosing an English text and reading an English text every single day. Let's look at the skill that you'll be developing throughout the programme, and that's being able to deal with new vocabulary by identifying the meaning of new words from context, the words around them. So we're going to do some vocab work now. Let's look at this word, sprill. Are you able to guess what it means? Can you tell what that means? Sprill. Any ideas in the chat box, please? What do you think it means? Can you guess what it means? Is it possible? Okay. A few of you are proving me wrong and making guesses. Okay, we've got lots of guesses. Maybe it looks similar to a word in your own language, but really, without a sentence, without any context, no words around it, we can't identify meaning. We can't identify the part of speech. By that I mean whether it's a noun, a verb, for example. So what we need is some context. If I show you this word again in a sentence, you have a much better chance of guessing what it means. You can also identify the part of speech by looking at the grammar surrounding the word. So in the chat box, please, we're going to use chat boxes only for this one. What part of speech is sprill? How do you know? And what could it mean? What part of speech is it? How do you know? And what are your guesses? What do you think it means? based on the context. Okay, any ideas? Okay, I can see some coming through now in the chat box. Thank you very much, some lovely ideas. If I show you this, maybe it'll help you, but I think you've got it. Great ideas all from this context and all about this context, and yes, it is a noun. We know that because look at its position in the sentence. It's following an adjective, friendly, and there's also the article there I've highlighted in red for you. But some of you have made some guesses. That's great. Some of you have said a woman, a person, sorry, Esther, I think you said the driver. And these are good guesses based on the context. Someone also said a dog. Yeah, I like that. I'm a dog lover myself. Do you want to try another example? Let's. Okay. What about here? What does sprilling mean? Sprilling. So in the chat box again, please, what part of speech is it here? How do you know? And what might it mean? What do you think it could mean? Okay, great ideas again, all coming from context. Yes, it is a verb. Well done, Carlo. Yes, Farhad, you've got it. It is a verb. It's a verb in the past continuous, and we have that clue of where to help us identify that. And a few of you are already making really good guesses. Looking at the words in italics here gives us ideas for the meaning. So children, classroom. So some of your ideas are what children could be doing in the classroom. So Debbie, lovely ideas. We've got drawing, painting, somebody saying yelling, maybe. Okay, don't worry, just one more. Let's try it again with this context. So again, what part of speech is sprilling in this example? How do you know? And what could it mean? Let's see your ideas, please. Okay. If I show you this, fantastic. Yes, most of you are getting the part of speech spot on. So well done, Ayrton, Gulzar, Amos, Sophia, Leyden. Okay. Rares, well done. You've all got this right. It's an adjective. It's an adjective. And how do we know it's an adjective? Well, look at its position in the sentence. It's before the noun film. It's between the article and the noun. And also these great guesses coming through now about what it might mean. It must mean something negative because they walked out of the cinema. So a lot of people are saying, like Arcana, you're saying boring. Soham, you said loud. Maybe. But the point is that you're looking at the context in order to understand that word. And the truth is, sprill is not a word. We use this word just to show you the skill of identifying meaning from context. Sprill is not a word, nor is sprilling. It's not something for you to learn. What I do want you to take away from today is that skill that you're using at being able to identify the part of speech and have a good guess at the meaning. But remember, as part of your self-study program, you'll be able to then, once you've done that, you can check in an English language dictionary. But don't check sprill, it doesn't really mean anything. So with vocabulary, you will be expanding your vocab range. And as you do so, I want you to think about how you're going to record that vocabulary. What do you do? I know you've been learning English for a while, so tell me in the chat box, please, how do you record the vocabulary that you're learning? What are you doing already? Okay, some nice ideas coming through. I'll give you a couple more seconds. What are you doing to record vocabulary, Andres, Debbie, Gianmarco, Usama? What do you do? Okay, thank you, Roberto. All right, you need to find a way that works for you. Some of you are talking about using notebooks or that you're recording it in an Excel document. If you're happy with that, then that's great. For me, I'm a bit old-fashioned. Maybe I'm too old, I'm not sure, but I do prefer a piece of paper and a pen, so I have my trusted notebook with me. When you're recording vocab, it's more than just meaning. So make sure that you do take a record of the part of speech as well and other members of the word family. You're not just taking down the verb, for example, allow, but also the noun, also the adjective. So you're always expanding your vocabulary range, but don't overdo it. Don't try to record every single new word in the article. Choose just a few words per article so that you can really get to grips with them and review and recycle your vocabulary. Use it again and again and again, using flashcards or using pictures, and write your own example sentences so that that vocabulary becomes meaningful to you. Let's move on to the third day of the programme. Now, on the third day of your reading week, we'll start the day again with reading and vocabulary from your choice of text taken from One Stop English. My advice here is to choose a different topic from day 2 so that you're really expanding the range of topics and themes for your reading and vocabulary range. But on day 3, you're going to look at some different question types, some of the ones that we're asked a lot about: true, false, not given, and matching headings. Don't worry, we're not going to do this now. I just want to show you what it looks like. So you'll be given the link that you can see at the top of your screen, and these are the questions you'll be working with alongside a text, which is all in the link. So that's what true, false, not given will look like, and these are the matching headings. So this is just a screenshot of the questions you'll be answering. Don't worry, you're not expected to do it now. Remember, we spoke about time, spending time on this, identifying how long you want to spend on each of these types of questions. So we're not going to do that now, but let's move on to day 4. So on day 4, you tell me, what are you starting with now? In the start of the day, how do you begin the day? What must you do every day? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Sehar, Anna, Daria, thank you. Yes, we're practicing our reading, finding an article. So you follow the link, the same link every day to One Stop English. Don't worry, you don't need to remember the name of the website because we provide you with that link. But every day you're choosing a different article to read and you're using that article to update your vocabulary notebook or your file. And then once you've practiced those skills again, those reading skills, you'll then look at another 3 types of questions from the reading test. So you'll have matching sentence endings and 2 types of multiple choice questions. One where you can choose more than one answer, and this one, multiple choice questions with just one answer. And we're going to do this one now. So this is probably, I hope, this is probably familiar to you if you have been studying English for a while. You need to read the text and choose one correct option. So remember, as I keep saying, the time that you spend on this is up to you. I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this particular question today. So you've got 2 minutes to read the text and answer this question, but I don't want your answers in the chat box yet. Can you put your answers on a piece of paper? Your 2 minutes start now. Okay, you've got 1 minute left. I'd like you to put your answer on the poll question if you can. If you can't see it, that's not a problem, in the chat box. I'll give you 40 seconds to submit your answer. Okay, another 10 seconds. Try to put your answers on the poll if you can. If not, just answer in the chat box, that's absolutely fine. Okay, and let's look at the results of that. Really pleased, I'm really pleased. Well done, everybody. Most of you have got this right, that yes, the answer is A. Don't worry if you didn't get this answer right. Let's look at why the answer is A. So if you can see the sentence here in green, can everybody see that? The sentence in the middle in green. If we break that sentence down and see how it matches option A. So option A, abolishing, means the same as take away. We also have pay schemes, and this is what we have in the green sentence as pay scales that are based on age. Take away, seniority-based pay scales. So this sentence, although it's using different language, it's using synonyms and paraphrasing, this sentence carries the same meaning as sentence A, option A. But another aspect of multiple choice questions, as well as trying to match the correct answer, is often eliminating the others, eliminating the wrong options. So I'm not going to go through them all, but if you see in the red sentences, these are all of the sentences that refer to the other options, B, C, and D. And if we just take B as an example, so our keyword in B is piece rates. You might not know what that means. Maybe you've never seen that before, but you're still able to identify that it's at the bottom of the paragraph if you look at the third line up from the bottom. And it says, although manual workers on piece rates often earn less as they get older. So it is discussing piece rates. It does point out that people earning piece rates earn less, but it doesn't in that sentence say anything about avoiding it. My advice to you, because I know we're going through this quite quickly, is when you are doing this task, this multiple choice question, feel free to come back to the recording and look at what I've identified here in red. Look at the highlighted sections here in red to really see why are those answers incorrect. Because sometimes if we're not sure of our correct answer, it's a good strategy to eliminate wrong ones instead. Okay, so let's move on to the last day of the reading programme. So on the last day, guess what you're starting with? I'm sure you know by now, you're sick of me saying it. I do apologise for my repetition, but yes, you're continuing with your reading practice. So going to One Stop English, finding a new article on a new topic, and developing your vocabulary range from there. And my advice after day 5 is to keep going with that, because once you've established this good habit, it means that reading is now part of your everyday. And the more you read, the more you will increase your reading speed, and every day you'll be expanding your vocabulary range. So keep going with it even after you've finished the programme. Now, before the programme does finish, you can see at the end here, we've got you're going to complete a timed practice test. You're going to look at the remaining question types. And if I look at this, it looks like quite a lot, doesn't it? It looks like a lot of different types of questions. But can you see they all have one thing in common? In the chat box, please, what do all of these question types share? What do they all have in common? There's one key word that I'm hoping you can identify here. That's right, completion. They are all completion tasks. Note completion, sentence completion, and we're going to look now at this one, summary completion. There are two types of summary completion in the test and in your programme. So both of these, you can see type A in red, type B in blue. It's very important that we are able to identify what the difference is between them. So you'll see your last poll question on the screen now. I want you to read the instructions carefully and identify the difference between summary A and summary B. I'll give you 30 seconds to tell me the difference in the chat box or use the poll question. What's the difference between these two? Don't answer too quickly. Make sure you're reading the instructions. Okay, I'm glad that you're reading the instructions. I'll give you another 10 seconds. Okay, and let's look at the results, shall we? Okay, most of you got this. I'm very, very pleased to see it. So yes, summary completion A requires you to choose from multiple options, and that's one type of summary completion task you'll get, whereas summary completion B, you have to complete with language from the text. And I want to look at that one a bit more closely, because we've got a few minutes before we go over to questions. If we look at this second one, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to read again. I just want you to think of the skills that we used earlier with vocabulary, when we looked at the grammar of the sentence to help us identify the part of speech, and we made an educated guess about meaning. Let's try and use these skills now. So in the chat box, for questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'd like you to make some predictions. Think about what part of speech, a verb, a noun, an adjective, or an adverb, might be possible for each of these gaps. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this, so look at the context, the words before and after the gaps, and in the chat box tell me what part of speech belongs in each gap. In the chat. Okay, some lovely ideas coming in now. Thank you. Thank you, Daria, Vareen, Chona, Claudia, thank you. Begonia, Mirella, any more? Any more ideas? Okay. Great. Lovely ideas and a lot of correct answers. I'm going to be very annoying because I'm not going to tell you the answers to this one because you'll be doing this as part of your self-study with a text. But I will just say that yes, the majority of the answers do contain nouns. There is an adjective, which most of you identified, but be aware of that instruction. Notice no more than 2 words. So you might also find an adjective and noun combination. Just be aware of that when you do this one yourself. So before you finish the reading self-study programme, you'll complete the timed practice test on the IELTS Prep app. To do that, you'll download the IELTS Prep app. I know a few of you already have, and that's great. I hope you've been using it well. Select the reading part, If you want to find out more about the reading test, there's information there as well, but I would draw your attention to the practice tests. There are 3 practice tests. Maybe you've already done one, but my advice would be to do them in order. It just makes sense. And to select the appropriate test. We've been using academic. We've been talking about the academic programme today. So that's what you'll do on your last day. Okay, and here are a few of the top tips that I would recommend for you to improve your reading skills. Read as often as you can on a wide variety of relevant topics, relevant to the test, things that might come up in the IELTS test. Choose a few words every day, not every single new word, but a few words every day from the reading to help you expand your vocab range. Increase your reading speed by using skimming and scanning skills. Remember earlier on, we scanned that first slide for information about the text, and that really helps us to improve our speed. You'll also do a lot of skimming, and that's where you read a little bit more, but you're still reading quickly. Make sure that you regularly review how you're getting on. If you're doing well, well done. Reward yourself. Watch that TV show, have that cup of coffee, have that break. But could you maybe push yourself to read more, read a wider variety, maybe even time your reading so that you are picking up speed if possible. So today we've talked about how we organise ourselves as self-studiers with getting a proper place and allocating time to study, setting realistic targets for ourselves, looking at how we might access a variety of reading texts, variety of topics. We've looked closely at vocab, how we might use those texts to identify new vocabulary, and maintaining a record of anything that we find. We've looked very quickly, but this is what the programme is for at the different question types in the IELTS academic reading. You'll go into that in a lot more detail at your own pace. Okay, so thank you very much. I hope you found this webinar useful. We're going to finish off now. I'll come out of the chat box now and go into the Q&A, so the question and answer box. Marcello, you're asking about the Sprill thing. Can you explain it again? So what we used Sprill for, Marcello, was to try to get an understanding of a word that we don't know from all of the words around it. Because very often in the test, we panic if we see a word that we don't know. We think, well, I can't understand this text because I can't understand that word. The key is do not give up when you stumble across a word you don't know. Try to work out what it might mean based on everything else around it. I hope that helps you. Next one, so Vibav, you've asked about how to improve skimming and scanning skills. You'll be improving those skills every single day on the programme, because whatever type of reading you're doing, you will be using scanning for specific information, whether it's the answer to a question or whether it is just to find where in the text you'll find the answer. Scanning is a really important speed reading skill. Skimming is similar, but because it's fast, but skimming actually, that's when you're reading the text, but you're reading it quickly. You're not reading every single word very slowly, but you read across the sentences, across the lines, identifying the keywords as you read. Okay. Sudipto has asked, will reading newspapers be of help? Absolutely. Reading English language newspapers will be helpful to you. You can find these online. Because I know a lot of us are avoiding going to the shops at the moment. I would say maybe avoid tabloid newspapers because they don't really contain the type of language that you're likely to find in the academic test. But yes, if you use the broadsheets, if I can use that term, so the broadsheets such as the Guardian, for instance, that's going to contain a better standard of English language that is relevant to the IELTS level, the IELTS academic test. Okay. Ramnik is asking about how to keep a record of vocabulary. Well, the how is up to you, but it's important that you do it so that you're not just learning 3 words a day, 4 words a day, and not noting it down anywhere. You need to keep a record of it. What I do is I have a colour-coded notebook. I've been trying to learn Italian my whole life, so I keep a colour-coded notebook. And I like to use lots of different colours of pens so that I'm able to mark pronunciation and part of speech. I'm able to write example sentences, not just the word and its meaning. Because when we learn a word, we learn so much more than just its meaning. We really need to know as much as we can. So find a way that works for you. Stani and a few of you are asking, how are we receiving these? Okay. So if all of this is news to you, maybe you weren't expecting the discussion of the programme as much today, sign up on takeielts.org to the programme, the self-study series. Once you're signed up, one of these wonderful colleagues of mine will send you a link to a PDF. In that PDF, you have links for everything that you need to do, including the link to One Stop English. If you remember, One Stop English is where you're going to go to find an article to read. And that's one of the links that will be sent to you there. Okay. Sorry, there's a few. Osden, you've asked a really important question. Is there a word sprill or is it made up? I want you all to remember it is made up. It may well be an old-fashioned academic word that nobody uses anymore. Maybe it was the old word for barracuda that nobody uses anymore. I don't know, but it's a word that we made up just to show you the skill, the activity of how to identify meaning. The word sprill itself is useless to you. Don't worry about it. Okay. Let's try and get a couple more questions. Sorry, I'm just trying to find some new questions. Someone's asking, do you think it's useful to study reading academic tests to prepare myself for general IELTS tests? Lillian, I'll be honest with you, not fully, because although we do have very similar question types, you'll have a lot of the same question types, the texts themselves are different. So it is important that you do sign up to the general webinars and look at the general practice tests, because the reading is where there are a lot of differences, the reading and the writing. So make sure that you do sign up for the ones relevant to you. Okay, one last question. Camila, you're asking a really important question about paraphrasing vocab from the text. Now, if you have a completion activity like the last one we looked at, the summary completion where we have to complete with words from the text, no, you cannot use synonyms, you cannot paraphrase. If it specifically asks you to complete the sentence, note, or summary with words from the text, you must write it exactly how it appears in the passage itself. Be very careful about that. Make sure as well that you're checking the spelling against the word as it's written in the passage. Okay, I'm sorry we've not had time to deal with all of your questions today. I will recommend a place that you can go to get those questions answered. I just want to go through some of the other resources that are available to you that are available online. While I'm doing that, feel free, if you want, you can leave us a comment in the chat box to let us know what you have enjoyed about the webinar today. It's really lovely when we get those comments from you, that we all appreciate them, not just the person who's speaking. But as always, I'm going to recommend takeielts.org. That's really our home, our base, where we get all of our support materials for studying, for preparing for the IELTS test, including free practice tests. Also, I would highly recommend, as I did so earlier, that you all join the Take IELTS official Facebook page. So if you join the Facebook page, you're going to find a support network. So even if you're the only one in your house or you've not seen your fellow students for a while, you will find the support that you're looking for on the Facebook page. It's also the place where if you're having problems, if we've not been able to answer your questions today, there are opportunities where there are live sessions with IELTS experts who are able to answer your questions. Take IELTS official Facebook page is also the place to go to if you're having any difficulty with accessing the links to previous webinars that you did attend. That's only for those of you who did attend previous webinars. If this is your first webinar, that doesn't apply to you. But if you've attended a webinar and the link that you've received is broken or the password's not working, let them know on Take IELTS official Facebook page. They're there to help you. Just be patient because they're dealing with a number of requests at the moment, but they will get back to you. I also highly recommend the free computer-delivered familiarisation test. Guess where you can find that? That's right, takeielts.org. Lots of questions coming through today, as usual, about the difference between the paper-based and the computer-delivered. I think you need to try both for yourself. You can find examples of the paper-based test on Take IELTS and access to the familiarisation test for the computer-delivered. Try them both, see which one works best for you. We also have Road to IELTS, and FutureLearn is at the moment hosting an IELTS online prep course. That's a 3-week course that could not have come at a better time for us, because whilst we're at home waiting for all of our schools to reopen, twiddling our thumbs, looking for something to do, you can do this course over 3 weeks through FutureLearn. And again, that's free. I mentioned the IELTS prep app for your practice test that you're going to do at the end of your week of the reading programme, but there's no reason for you to wait to download that. Download it now, because it gives you lots of other stuff. It gives you information about the test in general. It'll give you access to grammar tips. And also what I like about it is it sends you reminders every week to really keep you on track. Vocab. Now, we've spoken a lot about vocabulary today, and these apps are really designed to focus on your vocabulary. And just by dealing with that few words a day, but keeping it up every day is going to help you to improve your vocab range. So for books and study guides, for information, more information about the IELTS indicator test, which you might be interested in, guess where I'm going to refer you to? That's right, takeielts.org. So that's really our base that we recommend you find all of these free resources and for information about your local test centre. So thank you so much for spending this hour with me. It's been lovely to have your company again. I hope to see you in future webinars. I hope you do download the self-study programme and you get a lot out of it. You've certainly shown me today that you know what you're doing with IELTS. You just want the practice, and that's fantastic. So please take care of yourselves. Remember, look after yourselves, wash your hands, and I wish you the best of luck in preparation for your test. Take care now. Bye-bye.